Hello everyone, welcome to part 3 on our beginner series of the Cessna 172. This flight is going to be dedicated to using the G1000 to its best effect for the purposes of doing instrument flight. Now the interesting thing is the weather today actually lends itself really well to instrument flying, so that actually worked out. Let's get started. Now, whereas in our previous 2 flights, we're concentrating on just kind of go, this flight is going to be dedicated on how are we going to get there accurately when we can't really see out the front windshield. And that's always a ton of fun, kind of a thing like that. I also appreciate the fact that they auto set my flaps there. Don't do that. That's my job. So we're going to go down to the G1000, and we're going to do a couple things to make it a little bit easier for us to do instrument flying. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to fill out a full flight plan as opposed to a partial flight plan. Usually you just hit direct and go. That works great if you just need to direct and go. But if we need any sort of complex flying, we need to come up with a way to basically be able to do it safely. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to SkyVector, our good buddy here. Like I said, wonderful website. Thank you for being so easy to use. We're down here at Brainerd today, and you can actually see where marginal VFR conditions are right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to be flying down to New Haven, which is a pretty good little flight for us. And we're going to do a little bit of instrument stuff along the way, just to kind of make it fun for us. So if I come down here and hold my mouse over New Haven and Tweed, I can see the wind is 160. It means it's coming out of the south. It's a little bizarre, which probably means we're going to be landing this way. So let's take advantage of that. So I'm going to click on my Hartford, go ahead and plan that. I'm going to add in this lovely Hartford VOR here. That looks good to me. And I think there's an airway in here that I can probably use to get pretty close. Let's see if we can figure, here we go. That's probably going to be our airway here. You can see this is little kind of blue line here. This is Tango 315. Actually, that wouldn't be for us because it's a Tango airway, but that's okay. But the reality is I can come down here and I can add Seal as one of our waypoints. This will be good for us. And then, of course, our destination is lovely Tweed, New Haven. So that's a pretty good little instrument flight plan there. We're going to pop down to Hartford, pop on down here, and then we're going to pop down to New Haven, just like that. All right, let's head back to our G1000 and get that all kind of queued up. One of the things that you can do is you can actually pop this display, alt-right click. And the advantage to popping it out, which I find kind of helpful, again, everybody's a little different, is since this is just easier to see what you're doing if you put it like on a different screen or something like that, especially like with the Cirrus. And since this, it just makes it easier. If this doesn't work, again, anytime you can just sort of close it. So one of the things I just noticed, for example, is this thing decided to reset my fuel. Like, bro, this isn't, don't mess with my plane. I need to fly this thing. I don't know. It's just one of those things it does. I'll load immediately. All right, there we go. Fantastic. All right, let's do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using a couple different knobs here to make our lives a little bit simpler. We're going to start with the FMS knob. Again, I can go ahead and crank this thing like this to change what pages I'm on. I'm going to change the big one, which is going to be the big pages. And we're going to go all the way to active flight plan. Nice. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. You could also press the Fipple button if you want to be a little bit quicker. I like entering it on the right side. I should say my co-pilot usually enters it for me on the right side, but this makes it a little bit simpler for us. So what I'm going to do is take this little knob here with my mouse, right click, and I'm going to use the big one to basically scroll down to this line for origin. Go ahead and right click, or not right click again, I'll roll the mouse wheel, type in my origin point, which is Hartford. That looks good to me. Enter. Are you sure? Yes. And we can even dial in the runway. So if we wanted to, we could say runway 20, which I think is kind of cool. Nice. Delightful. So I'm going to scroll down here to where it says en route, and we're just going to go ahead and dial in our flight plan. So we're going to do an HFD. Don't forget to shut this one off each time if you want to, kind of a thing like that. You can see it's chosen, wow, that's a Maine, I think. That's pretty far away. So I'm going to press enter. Do you see how it lets me choose my other one? I actually want the one in Northeast USA. The weird thing is the real G1000 sorts them by distance. I'm kind of surprised this one doesn't, but it's okay. I'm not worried about it. There's my first leg. Go ahead and give this a quick little wiggle. Push the button again. I believe we chose Seal, right? What was it? S-E-A-L-L. There it is. Seal. It looks good to me. Press enter. Looks good to me. And there's our seal. Looks good. And of course, our destination, scroll down here, is going to be New Haven. So just come in here and do Kilo Hotel Victor November. Shut that one off. Looks good to me. Enter. It's going to say, what runway do you want? We're going to be landing to the south today. So ironically, we're going to be landing on the runway we took off from. Go figure. Press enter. Now, this is looking really groovy. We have all of our flight, and as a matter of fact, when I come down here like this, you can see it did a perfect job recreating it. And that's one of the things I love about a G1000. It's so clear when you're doing certain steps. It basically appears in front of you, which I just think is absolutely wonderful. So now that I know that that's working correctly, we're going to come down to our destination just like that. This looks pretty good to me, and we're going to do something a little fancy here. I'm going to take my little mouse here, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm actually going to set this up for my runway approach. So I'm going to disable this. Again, I pulled this out like that. I'm going to press the proc button. I'm going to select approach by pressing enter. And now I'm going to pick the one that I want. We have a lot of choices here. We could do RNAV GPS LPV, which would be delightful. And that's going to be the one I actually pick. RNAV GPS 20 LPV. This is what they call a GPS or random navigation approach. Looks good to me. So I'm going to press enter. It's going to be like, how do you want to get there? Notice, we could pick Hartford as our initial position to get there. Kind of fun, huh? But if I scroll down here, it actually previews all the possibilities. So if I actually zoom out a little bit, it's not going to let me zoom out. That's okay, though. But the thing is, it lets me preview them. For example, Hartford could be my starting point for this. I could use SOARS, which if you take a look here, SOARS is, actually, this vector's my apologies. SOARS is over there on the left. Again, I could take Sorry. Is that a fabulous name for something? Again, SOARS, Sorry, or I can pick vectors. So I personally prefer GUMP, but I'm going to do vectors today and press enter like that. It's like, do you want some minimums? Of course I want minimums, and we're going to come in here and dial in our minimums. I have to go look up the actual approach itself, but I think it's like 470 or 480 feet. It's pretty high, but again, I can look that up to be a little more careful. That's pretty good. I'll press enter. It gives us our sequence. That's exactly the sequence I want. Scroll down here to where it says load and press enter. Now, you're saying, wow, that was a lot of work. Why did you do that? The reason I did that is if you take a look here, it's populated my altitude page over here on my right. So let's say I want to use vertical navigation to make my life a little lazier. I know as long as SEAL is above GUMP, I will safely get down there. Watch this. So I'm going to go right click here again. I'm going to go all the way over to where it says Hartford. And now I'm actually going to change the altitude of that waypoint. Well, we'll do 3,000 feet here. Again, big knob is going to be this part. Little knob is going to be the little knob numbers. There we go. Looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and scroll all the way. Press enter. Scroll down to SEAL. Did you see how SEAL has to be higher now? Notice GUMP jumped to 3,000 feet. So if I were to actually go down here, for example, just to sort of demonstrate the concept here, if I were to pop this up to 4,000 feet, which makes no sense because we're traveling that direction. So let me go 3,500 feet. Watch what happens to GUMP. Enter. Looks good to me. Press enter. And you'll see here that GUMP jumps up because it's that initial vector. That's okay. Don't stress about it. So we're going to go to SEAL. We'll say SEAL. We're going to be, we'll do 2,500 feet for SEAL because why not? I'll press enter. Now watch this. Do you see what happened to GUMP? GUMP again dropped down to 2,500 feet. Now, if you came over here, you'll notice you can actually adjust GUMP. So if I actually come down here, if I wanted to adjust GUMP, because I want to use full VNAV, for example, I can come in here, dial in and press enter, enter. And now I've overwritten it. So we're going 35, 25, 2,000, 1,700, all the way down to runway 20, which makes it really easy for us. This is all groovy. I like it. When I'm done, I just go ahead and right click on that sucker, and basically it's ready to rock. If I wanted to, I could change my VNAV profile. I don't need to do that for this particular purpose. Everything is looking really good for us for this particular flight. So come back to my map. This is looking fine. I like that. So heading over to Hartford VOR. If I wanted to get technical, I could come over here and actually put Hartford VOR in here, and you can see it lights it up, but I'm not worried about that too much. All right, let's get our altitudes preset. Now, the cool thing here is if I ever forget what altitude I picked, I can just run back over here and pre-select it. All right, 3,500 feet. You'll see it's appearing in the sky above my head, just like that. Fabulous. I can go ahead and close this just by going back like that. If you have to, you can also press the Fipple button, and it gives you kind of like a semi-detailed breakdown of everything just to make it a little bit easier for you. Another thing you can do too, which is really, really fun here. Let's see if it works on this version. Don't let us do this on this version. That is lame. We should be able to save our flight plan, but that's okay. All right, we're ready to go. Let's do it. Transponder, lights, camera, action. Technically, we'd have to get IFR clearance and all that, but that's for another day. All right, that's looking good. We don't need flaps for takeoff, especially at Hartford. Oh boy, I'm getting some flight training flashbacks here. The amount of times I've taken off on this runway with the Cessna 172, it's, or the amount of times I've hit it kind of hard. All really, really good things when I kind of think about it here. All right, let's give everybody a victory wiggle there. That looks good to me. All right, line ourselves up with the runway. This is an IFR flight after all. All right, let's show you a quick trick here. I'm going to line ourselves up perfectly. Nice. Let me show you a fun trick. So I'm going to come down to my GPS here, my autopilot, and all those good things. I'm actually going to arm the flight director. See this little magenta line suddenly jumped onto this little piece here? You can actually take nose up and nose down to adjust that magenta line. Now you're sitting there going, what are you about here? What I'm about is to be as lazy as I can get. Watch this. So what I'm going to do is, you can see here, that's 7.5 degrees. I'm now going to come to the heading knob, right click once, and then I'm going to press heading. That means when I take off, if I press the autopilot button, I can take a nap, and you'll see exactly what I mean when we get in the air. All right, parking brake's off. Let's go ahead and give it full power. 21, 30. Man, that thing goes up so smooth. It does not go like that in the real world. 50 knots, 55, rotate, power wheelie. And we are off the ground. Hut, hut, shoo! Autopilot on. Now, no self-respecting pilot would ever turn the autopilot off when we're only 30 feet off the ground. But the reason I did that is I just wanted you to see just how cool that is, that I could literally sit there and dial that in to have it lock onto my specific attitude and right to go. Now, if you really want to cry a little bit, watch this. I'm going to press the FLC button here, and I'm going to do nose down a few times until it gives us 75 knots. Yes, that is the VY of this aircraft. So not only am I climbing under autopilot, but I'm pitching under autopilot, and if I look out the back window, you can see I'm still perfectly lined up with the runway I just took off from. Seems cheap, right? Problem is, in the real world, once we get a little bit of altitude, we actually do have to start flying our flight plan here. So the cool thing is I could just take the heading hold here, give that a crank, and if you take a look on our G1000 display, you see how it kind of gives you an idea of where it is. And again, air traffic control would have handed us off or something at this point. But once I'm lined up with that magenta line of safety, I could just come over here and press the nav button once. And what that will do is that will arm the GPS hold. So if you actually look here, my GPS is now ready to go as soon as I bump into it. And if you take a look at my little green victory circle here, yes, I know it's the FPV, Flight Path Vector. You'll notice that it'll actually line ourselves up with that and get us perfectly on course and ready to rock for the purposes of our flight here. And again, you can see just how convenient that is. So let's get to the top of the climb. There we go. That was a little easier. And we can see the alts is flashing, 3,500 feet, and our IFR conditions aren't nearly as IFR as we thought they were. But that's okay, because it's part of the fun, and this allows us to demonstrate some other things. Actually being able to look out the window oh, that's a nasty cloud. Being able to look out the window once in a while. So because we have the automatic pilot kind of holding the wheel for us, literally, we're going to go ahead and do things slightly different. So I'm going to swing over here on this side. I'm going to bring up the engine page. Again, the engine page is a little different than the engine page you get depending on the version of the GPS, or the version of the G1000, I should say. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull the throttle back till we get to about 2,500 revolutions per minute. It's going to be about right there. A little tiny bit more. Perfect. It would never be 2,500. It would be close. It's just the way airplanes work. You never get it exact. And now we're going to fiddle with the mixture a little bit. Now, the mixture is an interesting little thing here. And what it does is it controls the amount of fuel versus the amount of air getting into the engine. When I pull this out, you're basically sending a little less fuel, which means you get a better air-fuel mixture, you get a better burn. As a matter of fact, if you look up here, you'll probably notice my RPM jumped about 30 RPM. That's quite a power in performance, especially at such a high RPM. Now, the cool thing, too, is there's actually a tool to make this a little bit easier. If you press the lean button down here, do you see how it's got cylinder head temperature and exhaust gas temperature and all that? I can actually pull this knob out, and you can actually see how much of an improvement you have made based on the temperature of your exhaust. You can see, for example, our exhaust has jumped up another 10 degrees. Now, the trick here is you can just kind of keep pulling this thing back. I'm using my mouse wheel, by the way. And what will happen is your exhaust temperature will peak. We're about 1520, 1530, pretty high. And do you notice how my RPM suddenly went down? That's the universal sign for you leaned the mixture out too much, or that you've started to accelerate because now you've got all that extra power, basically. So one of the tips I actually recommend is when you're dealing with an airplane like this, without a fancy propeller that controls its speed, the easiest way to do this, just look at your RPM. So if I were to push this back in, for example, you can see my mixture is no longer good. And as you can also notice that I'm actually at 2530 RPM because we picked up speed. See how nasty that is? I love stuff like this. It makes it so complicated. So let's do it again. I'm going to go ahead and grab my mixture. I'll pull it out a little bit. Again, in the real world, you're going to know it if you pulled it back too far. And the cool thing here is you can see about 2520 RPM. I'm just going to gently pull it out a little more. 2530 RPM. You can see the exhaust gas temperature is getting hotter. Uh-oh, too far. Did you see how the temperature started going back down? That means you overdid it. So what I'm going to do is push the mixture in a little bit. I'm going to push the mixture in a little tiny bit more. And that's all you have to do. That's the magic of setting your mixture. I'm going to go ahead and pull my throttle back to 2,500 RPM. And now we're delightful. And you can see the mixture here is 59%, which is actually pretty accurate. Now, if you had the manual for this plane in front of you, you would know that your fuel flow gallons per hour is going to be a specific number at a specific RPM and a specific temperature. You could also set the mixture that way, and it makes it real easy. But you can see we're in the green. Everything's fine. We are cruising. Oh, there's the clouds we were looking for. I kind of forgot that there was weather today. Oh boy, that's nasty. So now we're going to get ready for our instrument approach. And again, this is incredibly basic IFR flights here. So of course, for some reason, somebody's been fiddling with my light switches here. I'll leave the landing light on. This is nice to have. I leave that one off for this flight, but that's okay. Is it too cold? 12 Celsius. That's plenty. We can turn on the pitot heater if we're worried about it. Like I said, not too worried. let's get ready for our landing approach. Now, this is where we can take advantage of some other tools here. So let's go back to our flight plan page. You can see here that we're supposed to be 2,500 feet. You can see SEAL's already pre-selected all the way down to 920. Watch this. So I'm going to grab my altitude selector, and I'm actually going to dial it down to 900 feet. Well, we'll do 1,000 just for safety like that. And then one of the things you probably are familiar with is something called VNAV. So when I press this button, do you see how this new light just popped on? This is the path. All it's telling us is that VNAV path is armed. And you're sitting here going, why is the airplane not diving? Should it be diving right now? Well, if you remember, we told the airplane at 3,500 feet at Hartford. That means that we've already crossed Hartford. We're still at 3,500 feet. When we get to SEAL is when things are going to start getting a little interesting. Now, the cool thing is we're 7 minutes away from SEAL. So if I use a little bit of the magic of time acceleration here, you can see very quickly how fast we start burning through that. I'll even use the magic of editing. Voila. VPath is highlighted. It is now ready to go because it's warning us saying, hey, just so you are aware, we have to start descending in order to get to SEAL. And one of the cool things is if you look over here on the right, you will notice that our vertical speed is 250 feet per minute. And we're coming down at a nice, gentle 3-degree descent. So luxury. I don't have to touch my RPM, although what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to enrich my mixture so I don't forget. Go ahead and pull the throttle back just a tiny bit here. And you can see so nice in the ears. Everything is just fine. However, and again, I didn't touch any of these buttons. The VPath caught automatically and gave us this lovely 3-degree descent. However, you will notice it is not lined up with our actual instrument approach. So let me show you what's going to happen here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the proc button, and I'm actually going to activate our approach here. Now, what you'll notice here is there's an activate vector to final, which is going to make things a little interesting for us. Now, the other thing we can do, too, is if we actually were to come down to select approach, enter, you can see everything's all pre-selected from before, and I can actually, let's go back to our one we chose before. Now we're using vectors, and if we go all the way down here, we can actually hit the activate button. Now, the difference here is when I hit the activate button, you'll see everything suddenly jumped, and you'll also notice that our lovely ALT system has panicked. It doesn't know what to do. Now, when you look at our G1000 display, you will see that we're holding that nice, lovely descent. You also have noticed the fact that we are nowhere near lined up with this anymore. Because we were doing that vectors to final and not using an existing waypoint, we're on our own for this particular approach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of the magic of heading hold here. Pop that one on real quick. I'm going to have it line us up. Right now, it's expecting us to be on elves, and it is not going to get us on elves. As a matter of fact, it's not going to get us anywhere close to that if we're not careful. So what I'm going to do is use a couple things here to kind of help us out a little bit here. We'll use a little bit of fancy descent here, trying to get us into position a little bit sooner. There we go. We'll use about 120 knots. This is safe speed, a little low in the RPM here. And we're just going to approach the approach. Now, I'm looking out the window here, and this is like legit instrument conditions. This is nice. This is lucky day, I guess. Lucky day. All right, so we're coming down here, and we can tell that we're below glide path, which is totally acceptable because we're about to run into it because we know what altitudes we're coming at. Now, if I wanted to descend a little faster, I pull the RPM back just a tiny bit. You can see that starts to increase. And now it's time to start kind of getting ready. All right, I'm going to need just a little less RPM. We're still in the green arc here. And usually the general rule is anything you do with power, just do it smooth, and you shouldn't have to worry about the engine too much. There we go, 2200, and you can see our flight path vector is basically lined up with the little magenta line buddy here. Now, the cool thing here is if you come down here and you press the APR button, what you're doing is you're arming the approach, but what you'll observe here is it's not going to actually capture the approach right away. So what I'm actually going to do is give it a little push, and there it is. You can see as soon as we got close, the GPS light came off. Now, one of the things you have to remember here is unless the glide path light comes on, we are not actually on an instrument approach using LPV. That's really important to recognize because our aircraft is still kind of descending on its own. Now, if you look at our two displays here, notice the magenta box here, which represents kind of where we're going. And notice that I tried to move my head to show you the other side of this. You'll notice this down here. When these two boxes correspond and basically overlap each other, we're going to be in the correct direction to land the plane, and we're going to be on glide path. We're actually still pretty high right now. And if I were to actually look out the window here at the actual place we're going, you can actually see that it's right over there. You can see just how incredibly low we are. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of power as we kind of get all squared away here. All right, looking pretty good. And you can see 1,700 feet is the final approach fix here. We're at 1,700 feet. And again, because we set up that V path earlier, everything's all squared away, even though it's armed for 1,000 feet. Is that kind of cool? All right, let's approach. Whoa, magic of magic. Here we go. Whee! There it goes. Whoa, too much. There we go. One, two, slowing ourselves down. Delightful. All right, we're about to grab glide path, so you want to get a click of flaps in immediately. And again, we have the approach armed. We have this little magenta little diamond that's about to tell us we're at the correct spot. And do you see how the magenta and the gray are about to slam into each other? V-path just flipped on, which means the basically it's under the control of the G1000. The nose suddenly starts to lean down, and we need to start slowing down. Remember we put that click of flaps in a while ago? That's going to make us a little bit safer here. All right, idiot check time. GPS is armed. AP is armed. Glide path is armed. GPS and GP, that's good news. That means we're using the GPS and we have vertical navigation all integrated. Bring the power back just a little bit here. And again, we can just take a look because of our synthetic vision to know we're right on course. You can see we're a little low based on our little VASI on the side of the runway. Looking pretty good there, New Haven. I like it. Wind is good. It's right in our face. That's what we want it to be. We have LPV. LPV is good. That means we can use the LPV minimums. Our GPS is accurate enough, basically. All right, looking good. So one of the things with the instrument approach is you always want to make sure you keep your speed at a logical speed. If you do an instrument approach slow, it's going to back up everybody behind you, basically. And it's also going to be painful for you because you're going to have to basically stress out about it. But if you do it too fast, you run into the problem where you won't have time to react. So for us, I like to keep it right between 70 and 80 knots. It seems to be kind of the sweet spot for this plane. So pull the power back just a little bit, but let me show you a trick. If you put in one more click of flaps, you go to flaps 20, you can actually increase the power a little bit, and your speed is not going to spike on you because that extra drag, again, let me look out the window here. This is a big chunk of metal, so it'll help slow you down during this approach. We'll start bringing the power back a little bit. And again, we're just enjoying our nice slow descent here. Go ahead now. We don't need to look at this page anymore. I think you've got a pretty good idea what's going on. Go ahead and bring in the zoom a bit. Of course, keep in mind the next problem is we have to find our taxiing spot. All right, looking pretty good there. Again, while we're still on, everything is completely controlled by the GPS, so we just have to be mindful of the fact that this is as low as the GPS is allowed to take us. You just got to check your minimums there. All right, I'm looking out the window. I can clearly see the runway. I'm going to switch over to a visual approach. And again, the GPS is always there, and the nice little glide path is always there if you ever need a reference. As a general rule, you're really not supposed to be using the autopilot on these little guys under 500 feet above ground level. That's general. And keep in mind, different companies are going to have different recommendations to that particular effect. You can see everything's good. All right, let's do our idiot checks. Gas, good. Undercarriage, mixture, propeller, flaps, lights, speed. Everything is looking good. All right, short final now. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in that last click of flaps. The nose is going to come up on its own, especially if you still have the autopilot armed. And now what we're going to do is you can see that pops us up perfectly right into the VAS here. The GPS, of course, I was going to say the G1000 is going to tell us that we're high, but that's okay. A couple little things you want to be thinking about now, of course, is what's going to happen if you can't find the runway. If you can't find the runway, we have to run a missed approach. Give us a little bit more power. Gotta love Cessna flaps. They definitely slow you down. There we go. We got to get the flaps and our package down on time. We'll see if we can have a slightly better landing. One of the things people ask is, hey, I'm a general aviation plane. And I'm coming in for a landing, and I just noticed that I've got a lot of reds on the side of the runway. Is that a problem? Not usually. And one of the reasons I say that is, of course, with caution, is the fact that our aircraft needs a slightly different distance, and we have a slightly different technique to actually kind of get those last couple feet. So if you look at that big number 20 at the end of the runway there, that's kind of my reference point, not the giant touchdown markers, which are those giant white squares. So you can see we're pretty good here, and I'm going to start backing the throttle up. We're plenty close enough. But what I really want to do is I want to get a little closer to the runway and be a little extra low here for the purposes of the last couple feet. There we go. We're just going to do our power wheelie, power wheelie, power wheelie, power. That was much better than last time. Oh, there's the lag. Did you see it? I swear they need to fix that. If you do this in VR, by the way, it's a slideshow when you go to do those last couple feet. There we go. We're going to go ahead and gently hold the brakes. There we go. Nice. And then we even got the first turn off this time. So as you can see, the G1000 does everything for you. Also keep in mind in the real world that you're going to be a little more low. Look at that suck go. That was quite a wind. The other thing you have to realize in the real world, air traffic control is going to move you around a lot. So you're going to have to kind of be ready for that. But the reality is when you get it all squared away, it's an easy time. Enjoy.